My name is Nickel, Nickel. So if you guys haven't seen yet, Jeff Kaplan, Overwatch's game director, did an AMA over on Reddit. And an AMA is Ask Me Anything, where people can ask him whatever they want about him or the game that he's working on. And I went through all of this and compiled some of the things that I thought were the most interesting. So I'm going to try and break down some of this information for you because there's a lot of it here. And I'll try to bypass some of the stuff that's obvious in order to focus on some of the best parts. And by the way, this was submitted by Drybones over on Underwatch. So thanks for submitting. Starting right from the top, one of the questions was asked was what made Jeff realize that he wanted to get into game development. And he said that he didn't realize that game development was a job. So because of that, he didn't start doing it until he was 29, when he realized he had a chance to make games. So at that point, he dropped everything and totally changed careers. On the idea of how the original Overwatch concept came to be, he said that they were working on a game that got canceled, which sounds like he was referring to Titan. And at some point, the team had 6 weeks to pitch new game ideas to the studio, or if not, the team would be redistributed to work on other Blizzard games like World of Warcraft, Hearthstone, Heroes of the Storm, and Diablo 3. Then, between Arnold Sang's drawings of characters and Jeff Goodman's pitch for a class-based MMO, they merged the concepts into the Overwatch that we know today. And apparently, Tracer was one of the first characters implemented, but because they didn't have any animations or gun models, she shot laser beams from her eyes. So I can only imagine what playtesting that would be like. Everyone running around like mini Supermen. And on the whole development subject, someone asked for a documentary of how Blizzard creates a hero. All of the iterations that go into for abilities and everything else along the process. And Jeff actually responded to this saying, "We have something for you." So if that's something that is coming our way, that would be awesome. To be able to see a much more in-depth look at how the game is made. If you guys remember before Overwatch was actually out, we actually got a couple videos like these that even though they were short, they explained a lot more of the development process than we've seen since then, really. After this AMA was posted, the official Overwatch Twitter account posted a 3-minute behind-the-scenes look at the development of Orisa. So I'm pretty sure that's what he was referring to that we would be seeing soon. But it would be cool if they did something much more long-form as well. Over time, the hero that has had the most changes to them was Bastion. One of their inside jokes was that Bastion had an ultimate of the week. Ultimates like Bastion having grenades, a remote mine, and even being able to shoot through walls, which sounds crazy. Until eventually they decided that his ultimate would be transforming him into a different form. But I'm sure a lot of you guys remember from the early Overwatch footage was with him with that small shield in front of him. So just like Jeff said, he had a ton of changes over time. And then it came time to talk about Jeff's experience in competitive Overwatch, whether he plays it, and what range he's in if he does it. And this is something that I've seen people ask again and again because I guess it's just a natural question to want to know how good Overwatch's game director is in competitive. And a lot of these people who ask these questions think that he's at least Grandmaster or something along those lines. But my assumption has always been, when I read these questions, is that he probably doesn't even have time to play competitive at all because he's busy making the game. At least not have time to play it serious enough to try and rank up. But it turns out both of those possibilities aren't exactly accurate. He responded saying, "I like competitive a lot. I am a platinum player. I think I could get diamond maybe if I played comp more. I tend to place at the start of the season and play 25 to 50 games past that and then go back to quick play / arcade. I've been playing a decent amount this season. I placed around 2,700. Most comp games are fun because people play smarter and tend to care more about cooperation. I really wish people wouldn't tilt so hard in team chat though. I understand how frustrating the game can be when things aren't going your way, but I wish people would stop for a second and not say that mean thing in team chat. It doesn't do anyone any good. Everyone always looks at us to solve the toxicity problem with some magical game design fix, one that has not been invented by any online game thus far. Anonymity does weird things to humanity. I fear for the zombie apocalypse. So for those of you who always asked where Jeff is in the ELO, he's officially stated he's a platinum player. One of the things that was also mentioned in a response to someone asking about how Blizzard uses big data was Jeff bringing up that Blizzard has a business intelligence group that provides their business guys with analytics. And this business intelligence group works with the design team very closely to look at everything. Heroes, maps, matchmaking, progression items like unlocks, queue times, game modes, and popularity. entirely. And apparently this business intelligence group is made up of hardcore Overwatch players. And the example that he gave about them was that they try to keep all of the maps balanced as close to a 50% win rate as possible. But even though that's their goal, certain maps like Eichenwald have never achieved 50-50. But for some reason, players love that map anyway. But regardless, the changes coming to Eichenwald, like to the first choke and the castle doors, are happening because of the stats showing them an imbalance. And then of course, one of the other common questions that seems to get asked all the time is Overwatch's relationship with Titan, the canceled Blizzard MMO that was in development for a very long time. Specifically here, someone was asking if Tracer was a character from Titan. And Jeff kind of told the whole backstory of Titan in a slightly more thorough way than we've really seen before from him, at least that I'm aware of. Jeff said that Titan development began in 2007 at the time they were working on the Burning Crusade, and it was in development all the way until May of 2013. And this part was really interesting that he took it so head on because he broke down how Titan evolved from a class system to a hero system like we have in Overwatch today. He said Titan was a class-based shooter/MMO, and one of the classes was called the Jumper. The Jumper wasn't a specific character, but rather an avatar, like Warrior in World of Warcraft. Most of the concepts of the Jumper were male. We did some female ones as well. The playable version in the game was male. Blink, Recall, and Pulse Bomb were all designed for the Jumper, as well as dual-wielding machine pistols. At the time, I was playing tons of Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2, and my loadout was M16 primary/G18 secondary. The Jumper guns were my G18s. But because Titan was an MMO, the Jumper started getting tons of progression abilities, covering a whole level up system. So the Jumper got shotguns and knockbacks, etc. It was very cluttered and confused. When we simplified for Overwatch, we chose only the abilities that worked well together and then created a hero rather than a class. Tracer had a personality, an origin, etc. That's what made her work. And contrary to popular belief, most of the heroes in Overwatch were not in Titan. Tracer's elements of the Jumper Reaper was Reaper. He did have a crossbow at one point in Titan. Widowmaker evolved from a class called the Ranger Bastion, also evolved from the Ranger Soldier 76, evolved from the Ranger Symmetra, and Torbjorn evolved from the Architect Reinhardt, evolved from the Juggernaut, although he is completely different. Just the idea of big guy with shield is all that stuck, and Genji and Hanzo evolved from the Assassin. So that alone is probably the most comprehensive answer to how exactly was Overwatch related to Titan that I've ever seen. He specifically broke down, as you just saw, where specific characters came from in Titan and how their classes all fit together and how certain things evolved into other things that eventually got us to the heroes that we know today, as opposed to just having classes from that MMO style of thinking. So I'm guessing that's probably the bulk of what came from Titan, at least as it relates to the heroes in Overwatch. But there were things that were map specific, like for example Numbani. Peter Lee had that vision of what a futuristic African city might look like. And so even that, the idea of how that map would be, appears to have been carried over from Titan. Back when Overwatch was first coming out, most of this information wasn't even available. But now we know so much stuff that we never knew before. Arguably, depending on how you see it, one of the most controversial topics discussed here was about Overwatch and Team Fortress 2. And the question was, what were Jeff's personal thoughts on Team Fortress 2, and what is his reaction when somebody says that Overwatch is a copy of Team Fortress 2? And he actually addresses this head on as well. Right away, he starts off by saying that Team Fortress 2 is one of the greatest games ever created. It's in his top 10, and at the time it came out, he felt as if there was no purer example of elegant, masterful game design. And then he went on to explain how much Team Fortress he played, starting all the way back at the original Quake mod and going through the ages. And interestingly, the Overwatch team to be very aware that people would make the comparison between the two games. So when they were planning the announcement of Overwatch at BlizzCon in 2014, he pushed the team to have 12 heroes and 3 maps complete because he thought that if they had 9 or fewer heroes, it would be inevitable that they would be compared to TF2, that everyone would just map a specific hero to a TF2 equivalent. But the whole idea was that if they could get more than 9 heroes and just enough maps, then people might be able to realize that even though there was obvious inspiration from TF2 in the game, Overwatch was something different. One of the questions that seemed to be really popular was actually about another YouTuber called Dino Flask. And if you don't know what kind of videos he makes, they're basically clips of Jeff's developer update update videos, edit it together so that he says something different by combining his words in new ways. And there's a lot of different variations of this that he does. So his response to this was that he thinks the videos are hilarious, but he feels embarrassed whenever he sees them because, as he puts it in his own words, he said, he's a middle-aged awkward nerd with 0 points in charisma and doesn't belong on camera. But if he were to look at the videos objectively, if they were about anyone else but him, they are hilarious. I think that he has a lot more charisma than he gives himself credit for, but it seems like he still appreciates them, even though they are poking fun at him, albeit in a playful manner. And surprisingly, this last one was actually about the Nintendo Switch. In response to an unrelated thread, somebody asked about Overwatch being on the Switch, and he addressed this as well. He said that getting Overwatch on the Switch is very challenging, but they're always open-minded about exploring possible platforms. So that doesn't guarantee anything, but at least it's in their minds. I think that if Overwatch was on the Switch, I think that a lot of people would buy a Switch just for that, to be able to play the console version of Overwatch, but wherever you want. That would be huge. You could bring your Switch over to somebody's house and play Overwatch just on the Switch. Obviously, he's not saying that's going to happen for sure. I just thought the possibility of that even being considered was worth mentioning. So anyway, I know that was a whole lot of information, but I tried to distill it down to the stuff that was the most interesting. But let me know down below in the comments, which of the things mentioned here was the most exciting to you? Whether it's actually something that's for sure going to come to be or something that's just a maybe. Let me know which of these things was the most exciting to you down below in the comments, and I'll come check out what you guys are saying. One last thing before I go. If any of you guys want to submit stories for me to talk about in future videos, all you have to do is go to the Underwatch link down below in the description, and once you're there, you can see how to submit news. There's also a place where if you want to have your gameplay featured here on the channel, you can do that there as well. And right now, a lot of us in the Underwatch community are actually watching the Power Rangers marathon going on right now. So the chat will be hanging out for all 800 plus episodes. So if you want to jump in and hang out with everyone there during the Power Rangers marathon, the Underwatch link will be down below in the description. And that's all for today, guys. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a thumbs up. I would appreciate it. And if you haven't checked out some of these other videos on the channel, you can click on them to check them out, whether you're on PC or on mobile. Thanks a lot for watching, guys, and I'll see you next time.